You know the feeling. It's the slight, almost imperceptible tightening in your throat when someone asks for a favor you don't have the energy to give, yet the word yes falls out of your mouth before your brain can even process the weight of it. You are the architect of your own exhaustion, building walls of convenience for everyone else while your own house remains empty, cold, and stripped of anything that feels like you. Why is it that the loudest part of your mind is always the one terrified of the silence that would follow a no? We exist in a state of constant performance, meticulously calibrating our kindness to ensure we remain palatable, useful, and, most importantly, unrejected. We wear the smile like a mandatory uniform, polished and stiff, while underneath, the skin is raw from the chafing of pretending. You think you are being a good person, but deep down, in the quiet, dark corners of your overthinking, you know it's not kindness at all. It is a transaction. You are bartering your authentic self for the safety of being liked, trading the messy, complex truth of your existence for the superficial comfort of being needed. It is a slow, agonizing erasure, and the tragedy is that you are the one holding the eraser. The morning begins not with the sun, but with a mental checklist of whom you need to accommodate today. Your coffee tastes like cold duty. You walk into the world, scanning for potential friction, preemptively smoothing out edges that don't belong to you. It is exhausting, this art of becoming a chameleon, blending into the expectations of colleagues, friends, and family until you have no color of your own left. When they ask how you are, you say fine, and it is the most honest lie you tell all day. Fine is the camouflage you wear to hide the fact that you are hollowed out. There is a specific kind of violence in ignoring your own needs until they stop screaming and start whispering, and eventually, they stop making noise altogether. You have become so adept at catering to the emotional geography of others that you have forgotten how to navigate your own. You look in the mirror and struggle to recognize the person staring back, not because they look different, but because they look like they are waiting for instructions. What do you actually want? The question triggers an immediate, sharp panic. To want something for yourself feels like a betrayal of the contract you have signed with the world. You have convinced yourself that your value is tied to your availability, that if you aren't perpetually useful, you are essentially invisible. But let's be honest about the cost. The cost is the slow death of intimacy. You cannot be truly seen if you are constantly hiding behind a curated version of yourself. Every yes that feels like a violation of your boundaries builds a small, invisible barrier between you and the people you are trying to impress. You are surrounding yourself with people who love the version of you that doesn't exist, and the isolation that comes from that realization is a special kind of hell. It is being in a crowded room, surrounded by people who claim to know you, while realizing you haven't shared a single genuine thought in years. The overthinking starts as a low hum and grows into a roar at night. You replay conversations, analyzing the tone of your voice, the speed of your reply, the way you tilted your head to show engagement. Did you do enough? Did you sound too eager, or not eager enough? The anxiety is a parasite, feeding on your fear of being cast out, of being found wanting, of being exposed as someone who is tired and cynical and deeply human. You fear that if you stopped performing, if you let the mask slip, the people around you would turn their backs. That is the core of the wound, the belief that you are only worth the space you occupy when you are serving a purpose. You watch others set boundaries, and you feel a mix of envy and horror. How do they do it? How do they walk through the world without this frantic need for validation? You imagine a life where you could say no without needing to provide a paragraph of justification, where your silence isn't interpreted as an attack, where you could be moody or tired or distracted without losing your place in the social order. But the terror holds you back. The terror is rooted in the childhood realization that to be good was to be safe, that to be quiet and compliant was to be loved. You have carried that terrified child into adulthood, and you are still doing everything in your power to keep them from being abandoned. You are Gong Min, straining every muscle in your soul to hold up a ceiling that wasn't meant for you to carry. You are terrified that if you drop it, the whole structure will collapse, and you will be left standing there, exposed, with nothing but your own, messy, unapproved of self. But here is the bitter, unspoken truth that you have been dodging: the ceiling is already falling. Your spirit is already suffocating under the weight of these false structures. You are not protecting your relationships, you are suffocating them under the pressure of your own resentment. Every time you sacrifice yourself for someone else, you are silently keeping score, and that ledger of resentment is growing too heavy to bear. You are becoming a person who smiles while their heart is hardening, a person who is helpful on the surface but increasingly distant in their soul. You are paying a price that no amount of external validation can ever cover. The realization hits you in the quietest hour, perhaps at 3 a.m., when the world is finally still and the mask has been set aside. You aren't a good person. You are a frightened person, terrified that you aren't enough on your own. It is a devastating moment of clarity, a cold splash of water on a feverish dream. The fear of being rejected is not the problem. The problem is that you have already rejected yourself. You have looked at your own needs, your own desires, your own boundaries, and you have decided they are not worth fighting for. You have traded your integrity for a temporary feeling of belonging, a counterfeit currency that buys you nothing but more anxiety. The silence of the room isn't empty, it is waiting for you to tell the truth. To stop being good in the way the world demands, and start being real in the way your soul requires. It is not about becoming selfish or cold, but about reclaiming the right to exist without apology. You have spent so long fearing the world's rejection that you have ignored the fact that you are the one currently holding the door shut, keeping yourself from living a life that actually belongs to you. It is time to put down the weight. It is time to let the mask crack, to allow the exhaustion to show, and to finally meet the person you have been neglecting all this time, yourself. Drowning in the kindness you give to others. Starving for the truth you keep from yourself.